So welcome everyone to the final charr map. Wow, what a road we have come down right here towards the end of the playlist. It's weird. There's so much ceremony to the fact that this is the final charr map. And maybe there shouldn't be. I mean, there wasn't much ceremony for the final human map. That would be, what, Harathi until later when Lake Doric comes, maybe? There was no ceremony for the final Asura or Silvari. I mean, what would they even be? Maybe Mount Maelstrom, because that counted as Tarnished Ghost. But in any case, there was a real sense of progression for the charr maps as you travel through. Ending here at the Fireheart Rise, which is genuinely one of my favorite charr maps that they actually implemented, with a lot of weird, strange stuff going on in its design. I actually love that we've started on the bottom right here, doing this heart, because I get the sense that the devs once upon a time had something very special they wanted to do here with its layout. So you'll see that we're not in range of a meta here, but there is immediately 2 escorts in range of us right now. And in fact, if you speak to the NPCs at the start of the map, they talk a lot about like the war effort and so on. So the idea of this map is, first of all, it doesn't overlap with too many Guild Wars 1 places. Here's Shaman's Guide. And he did an amazing job, by the way, because the dungeon on this map, he's actually implemented on the overworld and everything, so it kind of looks like the map's a bit bigger. But here you'll see we're not really overlapping with much, just the final areas of the Dragon's Gullet, which we first got to explore way earlier in the playlist at Diessa. And in fact, these bodies of water to the north here that we'll probably go swimming in a second, those were the tar fields that you actually fight titans on in Guild Wars 1. It would have been amazing if there was like a titan body sunken beneath the water here in this map. That would be so cool, 250 years later. But the truth is, ArenaNet for so far have done nothing with the titans. I would really like to see a titan be involved with the story at Garenhof, for a ton of reasons that probably are best suited for another production. But yeah, here would be really cool as well to see like a titan body down in this lake. And again, they do a cool thing just like in Diessa where, yeah, it's kind of water, but there's also lots of tar around and there are machines to get rid of it. And you can still see like the after effects of the searing affecting even up here, where there are no crystals, by the way. You're not going to see any searing crystals this far north. This is well beyond the wall now. And actually getting, I wouldn't say close to the charr homelands, but certainly a lot closer than where they were aiming the searing at itself and where the Cauldron of Cataclysm was triggered from and so on. But, you know, there's still tar and nasty stuff around here. So anyway, back to the idea of the whole map. In the later zones, particularly the Orient zones, they create a sense of a meta event that flows from the start of the map to the end of the map. Now, there's kind of a very controlled entrance to this map. It's at the portal where we began. There is sort of another portal at the Shiver Peaks, but it kind of feels like this is where the map starts. And the NPCs in that big camp with all those tanks and stuff all over the place, they talk about the map as though, yeah, you're going to be out on some long meta event that slowly gathers people, just like the march to the gates of Arar or whatever down in Or, or just like what we experienced in the Straits of Devastation Or. And yet that's not actually what is happening here. There's basically a few disconnected events, but no real metas until you get to the very back corner. And even then, it's just to open up the dungeon. So it feels like the back part of it was done, but not the full thing. And it's weird as well because the, so to speak, entrance that we started filming this episode at, to me has always felt really remote because this itself is a pretty remote map. It's close to Diessa, but there's no direct entrance to Diessa, so it feels really far away. And it's connected to what? The Iron Marches, the north of the Iron Marches, which itself is remote. So, yeah, I think a lot more people actually do end up joining from the Shiver Peaks angle, which wouldn't have led them into a meta event very well anyway. So it's all just a little bit weird. There is a nice jumping puzzle here. When I think of Guild Wars Guild Wars 2 launch jumping puzzles, I always think of this one. It's called the Pig Iron Quarry. Pig Iron Quarry, and it involves jumping along this long chain filled with like mining equipment and carts way up in the sky, and as you do so, if you have camera shake on, and I tend to think at launch people were less savvy about options, so they probably did have camera shake on. It like vibrates your screen and you might mess up the jump and stuff, and it's quite a long fall. It's pretty good. Very, very easily broken and cheated nowadays, unfortunately, I must admit. I said that there's not really many metas. There are a few. This one here, the Battle for Bula Crossing. Actually a fantastic meta with loads of flame effigies and cool stuff. It's just localized into a very small area. These fields are amazing as well. Feel super Ascalon-y with the worms everywhere. The whole map has got like this fiery, like foggy, smoky tint to everything. And I guess that's because we're next to a volcano. We're getting closer to another volcano. Just like Mount Maelstrom hosted one, this map does too. The volcano is called Hrangmir. It's actually a really important location for the Flame Legion when they originally found the Titans and got their power in the first game that allowed them to invade. You know, there's kind of something really tragic about the Flame Legion story. It was the Flame Legion, whether they misplaced their trust or what in higher powers, it was the Flame Legion that broke Ascalon's back and got this land back. And now they're just kind of kicked out on the fringe, you know? And I can see why, and it's also beautifully laid out, but in a weird way, I kind of find that very poetic and interesting. That now they're these guys that are pushed all the way back, but they're still around this volcano. Lots of important personal story happens here, with the reconciliation of Ritlock and Logan. Not a place that really appears in the novels, though, as far as I remember. Not much. We're going to be moving over to the Grawl area in a second as well, where if you watched the Timberline episode in this playlist, you will have heard me talking about a great face in a mountain, and the Wizard Oz, and the Asura that manipulates them. Well, it's here that gets repeated, and you can actually be the guy that gives them commands, so that's pretty fun. Now, this cave here, watch. We go into the Burnt Hollow for this hero challenge. There's nothing else here. But do you see all of these NPCs? I've talked about this on some of the other charr maps, but this is the weirdest one in the whole game. Now, let me tell you guys. I have read every single line of dialogue in all of Vanilla Guild Wars 2. I did it for the personal story playthrough. And there's a really funny thing, and that includes all the ambient dialogue. So, every map has ambient dialogue. What's really weird about this one, and my theory is that the devs were crunched, so this is what ended up happening. Basically, there's no ambient dialogue being spoken to by any NPCs across the whole map. There is dialogue associated with events, okay? So if an event's happening, they will speak. But just people standing around talking, there's almost no ambient dialogue anywhere except in that cave. Now, you just saw how quickly we went in that cave and left again. No personal story, no other incentive to go there. But all the ambient dialogue is there. I'm talking heaps and heaps and heaps, pages of script of things that they can talk about. And a lot of it's really fascinating. It's not all just charr stuff either. There's some cool Norn stuff in there. There's cool Sylvari comments in there. There's so much in that freaking cave. And it blows my mind because there's no player that would realistically get to hear all of that. And I know no player is realistically going to hear all of anything, but maybe you get lucky and maybe one of those conversations is happening as you get the hero challenge. And you maybe hear that in the background. Maybe. Maybe you're even running around to speak to all the NPCs, press F on them and get their actual written dialogue, not their spoken ambient dialogue, the written dialogue. Perhaps you're doing that. And maybe during all that time you get one other conversation. Well, there's like 10 to 15 conversations there. You're just not going to get any of it. So it's just crazy. And it's all on such long timers because it's all bundled together so much. I can only guess that the reason that is that way is that at one point in development, all of it was written out and it was all voice acted. And then another day it came to implementing it all, but they were really crunched when it came to implementing it. So someone was like, just buying it all in that cave, just go. And it all ended up in there, unfortunately. So, and again, you won't really get a feeling for it too much because there are events like this here where you do get dialogue. But when you're really looking under the floorboards and so on, you start to see really weird inconsistencies with the game that are very unfortunate. It's one of the things that's really beautiful about a lot of the early maps. The early maps have the ambient dialogue filtered very well, and the cities have the ambient dialogue filtered very well, you know, canvassed everywhere. But there's barely any in this map, and it's all in that one cave. So what a shame. So that heart, by the way, there we were messing around with, that was the other face in the mountain. There's some fun interactions you can do. You can look down on all the Grawl and see how they respond to you and like all cheer or dance or laugh and stuff like that, which is pretty nice. I don't really have many memories of this section of the map. I mean, basically what's going on here, you can see we're under a meta event called the Assault on Aatrox, uniting the Grawl. Now, I don't actually remember what Aatrox is. Is it the big central area? But the idea is in this meta, we're going to several different hearts dealing with, you know, various Grawl tribes and the problems that they have. I do have a very particular memory. My Mesmer still holds this item, I think. This heart, or maybe not this heart, one slightly next to this, again with the Grawl though, you can buy as an item once you've beaten it, let's see if I can remember it off the top of my head, a prickleberry friendship fun flower, I think is what it's called. It's like some absurd green trinket that you can equip. Obviously, you're not really going to want to because rare gear and exotic gear and ascendant gear is in abundance. But it's an item that's got a really long name. It's like 5 words about this prickleberry fun flower or something, friendship flower. It's just so fun to ping to people, and I think I picked that up on my Mesmer, and I've just held on to it forever. I think Guild Wars 2 does that a lot, you know. For a lot of people, there's weird items that you just end up getting a connection with, and you end up leaving in your inventory for one reason or another, which is kind of stupid, because inventory management is such a nightmare in this game sometimes. But it's been better in recent years, you know. The bags are so big now. The consume all functions are so much better. The open all functions are so much better. The salvage all functions are so much better that you can kind of get away with it again, I think. But yeah, I had a bit of a reputation of being a drag. So yeah, this is, again, it's just another Gruul village. This one's Nokrok. Oh, that's what it is. I think it's a Nokrok. Friendship, prickleberry, fun. Someone in the comments will have it, I promise. Oh, what I would give to just speak to that heart vendor there and experience that for a quick moment. This area here is always one that trips me up a little bit. There's a lot of mapping you can do running in circles around these chasms, and if you don't quite know the way up and out into the vista, it's a real problem. Also, so far in the video, we have had random background music because unfortunately TechZoom forgot to record in-game audio, but it's back now. So we got the in-game audio back. Thanks very much for that, TechZoom. So yeah, this area of the map's kind of nice, but it's complicated and confusing if you're not mounting. If you're not gliding around. I tend to just try to get through this as fast as possible. It's a map that I bet most players don't give its due attention, because there's, you know, a lot of people who are exploring here are doing it for the map completion, and you're unlikely to start here. I mean, I'm sure some players decide to go in a reverse order or something, so they're here early and that kind of keeps them feeling fresh. But I bet a lot of people are getting pretty fatigued by map comp by the time they're this deep into the game. And they're not really focusing much. But there are some great things to see. This cave, for example, right next to us, has some really cool events, hidden things to do with Mesmer illusions and the Risen. It's actually a beautiful thing to see, because it's a very rare example of the personal story interacting with open world dynamic events in a really natural and immersive way. Nearly always, the systems are separate completely. For example, you're going to save a village in the personal story, or you're going to meet with an elder at a village in the personal story. So you're in the open world, you travel to the village, and oh look, there's a dynamic event. The village has been attacked, or it's under attack, and there's chaos everywhere. Well, you can just ignore that, just walk over to the entrance of the story and enter. That's it. So you can ignore the event. And being able to ignore those events mean that the two systems don't interact much. Only really with dungeon entrances did that properly work. And it's unfortunate. I wish ArenaNet had added that extra little thing, you know, some way to flag shut a personal story step unless the dynamic events around it had been done or whatever. So very often they don't interact, but up there in that cave they do. You do come in the personal story if you pick one of the very specific routes to do with a spy as you're setting the pact up. Takes you on a big adventure all the way up here. You even interact with some people back in the Black Citadel in a bar and stuff. It's really, really, really good. So here's another weird thing as well. And I kind of applaud ArenaNet for it. Oh, this heart's amazing. You can collect some grenades. Yeah, these are so good. In fact, there is a way to map complete here. Back in the day, I don't know whether it's really necessary anymore. And you might lose them when you mount and stuff. Well, no, you won't. You hold environmental objects. But you see these grenades? You can take these pretty much anywhere around the map, and they do tons of damage, and they have good effects as well. There's like immobilized grenades and stuff. These are way stronger than the grenades the engineer gets, and you'll actually notice some of the icons are a little different. Like, I think that's the Thief's choking gas icon there, and what became Engineer's Pistol 5, the glue shot, is on there as well, so kind of weird. I don't know what came first, this version of the grenade icons or the other ones. But anyway, these are really strong, and if you go online and look up like map completion guides for Guild Wars 2, you might find people still recommending this, especially the old ones, where they'll essentially say to you, yeah, just take these grenades around the whole place, try not to die, try not to get defeated or whatever, because you'll lose them, but you can use this for very quick credit. Anyway, the other thing I was going to say is we're in an icy area. Now, I kind of respect this because a lot of Ascalon borders on the mountains, and there's been many opportunities for us to go up the foothills directly while in the Ascalonian region, and suddenly we're in the Shiver Peaks. And the devs have avoided it, and I think that's created a good sense of clarity as to where we are and stuff, and was really important, especially between delineating between the Norn and the Charr territories further south than in the earlier game areas. But finally, you do get a bit of that mix, and I love this area. Look at this. These are human ruins here, guys, on these foothills. There's one of the maps in Guild Wars 1 as you're first traveling to the Shiver Peaks is really slanted and sloped, and there's all these ridiculous looking ruins as you climb up. First time you start encountering Hydra and stuff. And this place reminds me of that so much. It's so beautiful here. I love seeing that we're in Charr territory with the Flame Legion threat nearby, but it's snowing because we're so high up the mountain. And look, the humans once were here. Ascalonians had built places here. I get so captivated by that. And it's great. There's a whole side of Guild Wars 2 that was being talked about in the movement of the world back before the game came out, where it was like the Norn and the Charr, like sort of having a mutual respect for one another and interacting a bit. I kind of wish the Ascalonian maps did more of that, but at least here on Fireheart Rise, you get to talk to even hell, the Coden are here. The Coden are in that snowy bit, which is just crazy. It's so cool. So you do get a little bit here, and I've always really, really liked that. So I guess we're already heading up towards the volcano here, which is kind of nuts. Most of the end of the map here, you'll see the meta is now the battle for the Citadel of Flame and the Seneca's Castrum. I hope I'm saying that right. Seneca's Castrum. So this is where the meta actually starts, right here at Liberation Dell. If you ever want to do the dungeon, you come in here. This is a lot like what that's it, right there. That's the meta you would trigger yourself. And that's how you would open the dungeon gate. So just like I mentioned, if you watch the Mount Maelstrom episode, this is a place I've spent a good deal of time. I actually find doing this event chain to open the dungeon far more tedious. There he is, Raz and the Raider, and you've got to go the whole way with him. I find this far more tedious than the COE one. I think that's because for COE, the meta kind of ends with a boss fight, which, because of power creep, you can end quite quickly, while this meta ends with like a long defense. And it's just a slog, especially if you're solo. There's a lot of over aggro. And I think that's fine. This place should feel dangerous, and it should feel overwhelming and swarmed. But, yeah, when you've done it like 13, 14 times, probably over your full history of playing the game, it can get pretty tedious. You just sort of stand around at the dungeon and hope other people will do it for you. Or classically, way back in the day, just guest over to another map entirely and just try and do it that way. This has always been a weird map because in terms of the environments, it's so richly made and it feels so, like, detailed and dangerous and high stakes. But it's also so, like, peripheral to the main story, you know? When I'm in awe and I'm seeing they're all doing these big grand things in these hostile areas, it makes sense because it's like, this is the story of the fall of this Elder Dragon. And I really, really get a sense of it all matching up. But this feels like almost like a side story, and yet you get all these epic environments to go to. There's also, right around this area, another thing that appeared in the original trailer. It's like the Charr kind of flame torch stands. Also occurs to me that these are some of the only effigies we've seen in the whole playlist so far, so there's one. This bridge actually takes us right up to the dungeon entrance, which we will need to do. This bridge is very interesting because it seems, if you were to stand and look through the cracks, it seems that this is actually a dynamic object that the devs could script to break and fall away. Now, that is probably there because in an earlier development version of this meta, the bridge is not there until the meta has been pushed. And then as you push the meta, it probably builds the bridge up and then you defend the bridge. And once you fail the meta, the bridge breaks again and cuts people off. That's probably what they originally had an idea. But it never made it into the release game. It never made it into any footage or any alpha or beta or anything I know about. I wonder whether they ran out of time or whether it was that whole map completion thing. You know, we have to walk right up to the entrance to get the waypoint. And maybe they didn't want to cut people away from being able to do that because the dynamic event blocked them off. To me, I really feel like that's the wrong move. ArenaNet make that move all the time. They always let the players take the shortcut. If there's ever a moment that it's like, hey, you need to do something to get something that you weren't expecting, they nearly always just side with gameplay efficiency and just say, oh, no, we'll just give it to you straight away. And I don't agree with that. I think that, you know, if you want a map comp and it turns out you need to do an event to do the map comp, then fine. I don't see such a problem with that, but I know that a lot of you guys watching this video will have a problem with that. I know what the mindset of the general Guild Wars 2 player is. And, well, the game is what it is, so there you have it. This is a nice place as well. That vista is next to a little lava flow. You walk through the lava flow, you'll find that an Asura has built a lab in there. And it's a fantastic jumping puzzle. It's not actually a jumping puzzle, it's an explorer achievement. But it takes you into a whole lab. What's that famous painting where they mess... it's a bunch of staircases that seem to defy gravity and they mess with your perception. There's a room in the game that's kind of a repeat of that, and there's a surrogates that teleport you all around. There's these giant James Bond style evil villain fish tanks filled with sharks. And in fact, the end, you're in this really massive room with a big shark underneath. Again, if you guys want to watch that, you have to go check out that playlist. So amazing. And that lab appears like way off on the bottom left of the map, which is really weird. This place I've found visually always really compelling and very dangerous too. I remember in one of my like no armor challenges or whatever, this place was brutally tough. But look at this. Look at the color in here. Oh, I love it, guys. I'm such a little boy at heart, really. I don't like the snowy areas. I like lava and I like the undead and I like all the badass things. Ridiculous. So there's the Cold Pit. Oh, what was that? That's a little Order of Whispers. Sorry, not Order of Whispers. Ash Legion base. Because up the north, you kind of get a little bit of that. While in most of these maps, everyone's kind of united under the pact to a certain degree, and there's a lot of unity and cohesion. For the Charr maps, you still kind of get that sense of each High Legion and how they butt heads with one another, and you know whether the Ash Legion respect what Blood is doing out in the fields, or whether you know Iron has been ingenious enough to get them through whatever they're trying to go for. So that's always nice to look at. This little area, I think, is what I was trying to talk about earlier, to be honest with you, when I said I would get lost around in the little cabins all the time. I think this is it. I also believe that this heart is a bit annoying. We'll see how Tech Zoom goes for it. Obviously, you can just kill random stuff, but there's these hidden mine caches, and I swear there's some, like, obscure, irritating mechanic. I think I also get tricked on this one. You see the griffins in the area, and the bats? And I think there's Moa and stuff. Killing enemies like that do not give you credit. It's just killing Flame Legion. And I think you can run out of Flame Legion very easily. You notice how he's actually already skipping all the griffins and stuff. See, if this was me, I think I would be trying my luck against these raptors and whatnot, and that is not what you need to be doing at this point. Yeah, and here you go. So this vista, you kind of have to be very precise and very sneaky to worm your way up to. If you're not careful, you'll be down like at this outpost, for example, and looking up and thinking, how the hell do I get to that? Do I really have to leave the entire freaking chasm and then move around? And the answer, generally speaking, is yes, you probably will have to do something like that. So yeah, with this, I think this is pretty much the last heart of the map as well. I'm not surprised that you saved it for last. It's a really cool place. I recommend you guys check out the Pig Iron Quarry if you've never done that. It's something that a lot of players end up missing. There's a whole other place with Ascalon ghosts up here as well, by the way, off on the top right of the map. I alluded to earlier in the playlist. I pointed out that they had a large area of the map and they just didn't dump anything there, so they just put an achievement instead. And yeah, I think it's called Rebel Seclusion. I think you might find some separatists up there and maybe some ghosts. And again, it's one of those weird things. It's like, how the hell are human separatists all the way up here? I love the idea that the Flame Legion kind of tolerate them on their doorstep just because, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend almost. And a very efficient, really impressive map comp there. Start getting good rewards here as well. Look at that. Exotic items coming in. Not necessarily level 80 exotic items, but still exotic items nonetheless. And in the launch economies, that was really big because exotics through drops were insanely tough to get. And the Mystic Forge crafts, generally people didn't have enough coins for. So yeah, that was where a lot of exotics used to come from, and we're starting to get them now. Anyway, there you go, guys. We have one more map now before we are off to Ore for the final 3 maps of the game. And that next map is just through the portal connecting to this one. That's going to be in the Shiver Peaks. So I'll see you guys for the first true level 80 content on the next part. See you there.